Uganda.
Good evening and welcome to Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. Tonight we focus on the NRM retreat that is happening right now in Chankwazi. Today is day 2 and the president made his address today. The biggest question is, what is the purpose of this retreat? Because we know that as Parliament we'll be having a moment where they take their new members of Parliament through a session. But also we look at the number of members of Parliament that have gone through there. We also look at the number of independents that have shown up, but also they say, according to the NRM, that 40 have already signed MOUs with the party. The things that the president has mentioned today, the historic missions statements there, where he has talked about prosperity, he has also talked about security. We ask ourselves, are these the only things we need to consider? Are these the pain points of Ugandans, even when they look at the national resistance movement take retreat there? Today we focus on that and also look at the 9 points they're putting forward to be able to deliberate. They will be talking about the economy, they'll go on to talk about security, they'll also even go further as talking about regional integration. But what is the difference between this retreat and the one in 2021? Have we been able to do a review and say, this is where we are and this is where we need to head? But let me introduce the panel that is with me in the studio this evening to deliberate on these matters. On my immediate left, Joseph Ocheno, a member of the Uganda People's Congress, I should say the de facto leader, as he claims to be, but also a policy and political analyst that is with us this evening. Good evening, Joseph, and it's good to have you.
A pleasure to be here. I am the should-be president of Uganda People's Congress, but it's a delight to be here and with this great, fantastic panel. Very long time seeing the next in presence. She's traditionally my best sister in the outgoing assembly.
Okay. Next, as Joseph was trying to introduce her, Dr. Ape Atim Agnes, who is representing the woman representative of the people of Amolata. She's with us this evening. Doctor, it's good to have you.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me here.
Good evening. Next to Doctor is the Honorable Mukasa Fred Mbide, the Deputy President of the Democratic Party. He's with us this evening. Good evening, Honorable, and it's good to have you.
Thank you, my brother. It is equally good that I'm here. Of the panel of my seniors and my colleagues, I equally greet you, the viewers.
Next, he hasn't been here in a while. The Honorable Captain Edward Francis Babu, a senior citizen, is with us this evening. Good evening, Honorable, and it's good to have you.
Good evening, and of course I would like to take this opportunity to send my condolences to the family of Justice Nshimi, who was a member of Parliament, and a very senior one for that, and a Supreme Court judge. And a real citizen. He has 11 children he has left.
Wow.
On top of that, I would like to send my condolences to General Charlie Gonza for having lost his son. And of course, not last but not least, this idiot who killed our children in Gaba here. I only pray to God that he is sick. Because to do that, you have to be a sick man. I send my condolences to the families of those children.
Thank you very much. Lastly but not least, the Honorable Captain Mike Mukula is with us this evening, the chairperson of the Pan-African Movement chapter in Uganda. Good evening, sir, and it's good to have you.
Good evening, and I would like to associate myself with my brother, my senior brother, Captain Babu. First of all, to condole with the family of the late judge of the Justice of the High Court or Supreme Court, Justice Nshimi, may his soul rest in eternal peace. And I also joined the family of Major General Charlie Gonza and the Vanyoro and the people of Uganda upon the loss of the chairman LC5. It's a very sad moment for the family and the people who have just selected their leader who has not even been sworn in the new term. And also the families of those who have lost the 4 children who were brutally murdered by somebody who was insane in my view, and I agree with Captain Babu. You don't do such a thing in this modern era. But as they say, about 10% of Ugandans are mentally derailed. And that may be one of the statistics.
That's my worry. It might be more than 10.
Yes.
You know?
But this is a matter which I think, this is a matter that I think court needs to hold and handle expeditiously to see that justice prevails. And once again, I want to say that the souls of these children, innocent, may their souls rest in eternal peace.
Thank you very much. And you can be part of the show. Go to our YouTube channel, drop your comment there. We'll get to it in a bit. And also our X platform will be streaming live on the space there. Let us know what you think. The number for text or WhatsApp is 0709 60 25 92. Let's dig into this conversation, especially giving you context on what's happening in Chankwanzi. When we look at the manifesto of the NRM 2026-2031, it goes ahead to mention things like wealth creation and the economy. It talks about infrastructure development, human capital. It also talks about good governance and security, regional integration. This is the protecting of the gains. There are 5 thematic areas there, same in 2021, but also in 2021, where Dr. Pei and the Honorable Mukula were there. There were 6 areas that they were discussing, from ideology, manifesto, legislative agenda, regional integration, review of the past performance, but also inter-party discipline. We'll get to that part in a short while. This retreat is going to happen for 9 days. The one in 2021 was there for 3 weeks. Now we look at 9 thematic areas they'll be discussing. Most of them, the president addressed some of them. Ideology, parliament, its roles and what you're supposed to be doing, the economy, human capital, regional integration, and security. We'll spend most of our day, especially talking about the generalities there, but also we'll stretch to the economy and look at human capital, finally look at regional integration and security there. I'd like to start with the Honorable Captain Mike Mukula and the Honorable Dr. Pei, who are both here. You were part of the 2021 NRM retreat that took 3 weeks there during COVID. From your experience, why should Ugandans anticipate for anything to come out of this? I'll start with you, start with you, Honorable Mukula, and come to Dr. Pei.
This is a new parliament, and you've got many young people who have not had ideological alignment to get the narrative of the national resistance movement. So there are many thematic areas that this retreat is going to cover. One of the key things is ideological orientation. One, as you said, to bring them and align them to the 4 key pillars, which are ideological: patriotism, Pan-Africanism, socio-economic transformation, and the building of democracy in the country. And you will see that in that framework, it's very important that these young people, and most of them are very young, this is their first what we call legislative encounter. They will also be aligned to legislation in the country, particularly the procedures in parliament and so on and so forth. There will be people who will present papers in this regard. The narrative of internal cohesion, discipline in the party is going to be key, and is one of the thematic areas that members of parliament are going to discuss. The other point, which is also very important, is what you call the next 5 years, the forward agenda. What is going to be done, the implementation of the social contract, what you call the manifesto. How should it be done? What are the key areas? And this will relate not only to parliament in terms of legislation, but also the members of parliament, how they will relate with their voters, how they will engage positively, and see to it that there will be what you call commonality and understanding, driving the narrative. The other point is integrating and getting to understand the president's manifesto, the Musevenics. That is critical, because Musevenics is a key component in the governance of this country in terms of the economy, national security, East African political integration, the common trade, the economy as it were, the macroeconomic stability. The economy right now is quite stable. It has been growing for so many years at the rate of about 6%. Right now, that has now been enhanced to about 6 to 7%. With the new ECOP pipeline getting to Mwanza, to Tanzania, you'll see that the inflows of the crude oil will now be included in the MTEF, the medium-term expenditure framework. The economy is going to go through, in terms of growth, through the ceiling. How do you spend this money? And you'll see that in a few years or so, Uganda will be north of nearly $3 billion in the kitty coming in to be spent. Now, these are areas that are thematic, which are very key to members of parliament, and they need to understand the 9 days or 7 to 9 days are not enough. So you'll also see that the president will get his agenda. How do you now bring the new members of parliament together to read his revolutionary ideas and also be able to drink from his experience in governance of this country for over 40 years? What does Uganda need to do? The National Resistance Movement as a revolutionary party. What is in our agenda in terms of short-term, medium-term to long-term? These are all what you call key areas which are thematic, which will drive the narrative of governance in this country. And I want to tell you that whereas other people may misunderstand, may think that it is a means to try to indoctrinate the members of parliament. No. It is really bringing a party so that when it comes to legislation, it is easy for you to drive policy, to pass bills in the floor of parliament, and to see to it that you don't create uncertainty in governance and a free flow of ideas in parliament.
Honorable Mukula, you mentioned Musevenomics, you mentioned the president's agenda. At what point do we discuss the national agenda? Because this seems like it's NRM, it's the president's agenda. You seem to be misaligned to what the plight of Ugandans is vis-a-vis the conversation you are having right now.
Let me tell you one thing. All those who went out for the elections last year and were elected had manifestos. President Museveni, who was the flag bearer of the National Resistance Movement, had the manifesto, which is the social contract between the National Resistance Movement as a political party and the people of Uganda. The manifesto is a social contract. And the party midwives government. And as you know, the two arms of government, the executive and the legislature, need to be compatible, need to be having what you call a common drive. And as you also rightfully say, that the National Resistance Movement has a majority of the members of parliament on the floor of parliament. Two, you'll also get to know that the independent members of parliament, those who have signed a memorandum of understanding with the party, will also be brought on board. And all these areas in terms of lobbying, engagement, because don't forget, I want to tell you, that there will be areas of interest for members of parliament equally too, leave alone the president. There are those who want to be commissioners. That will be a lobbying center. There are those who have offered interest to be elected as Speaker and Deputy Speaker, whereas Central Executive Committee has passed its resolution, but the field is still open. So it may be an open position for members of parliament, those who like to offer themselves, also to find ways and means of engaging their colleagues, as it were. There are many things that will prevail and obtain on that floor. But let me tell you one very important thing, and let me be as clear as I can be. I have attended several of those retreats, and I want to tell you that the national resistance movement comes out stronger after that retreat and engagement. And you'll see that the governance and the cohesion that the party continues to drive is all built from that internal cohesion. President Museveni has now got a new team of actors in the legislative space of this country. That these legislators need to be guided in terms of ideological orientation. They need to be guided in terms of policy. They need to be guided in terms of the economy, national security, regional stability, our foreign policy, and so on and so forth.
Thank you. Let me come to the Honorable Dr. Pe. Doctor, you have attended numerous of the NRM retreats. The major one that ushered you in was 2021, 3 weeks there. Have you achieved what you set out in 2021, now that we're coming to the tail end of the 11th Parliament?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to appreciate my senior, Honorable Mike, for really giving a comprehensive overview of what happens in these retreats. Unfortunately, as a country, we have not yet come up with a policy that every Ugandan should actually attend these retreats. Your first question meant that this retreat is only meant for a few, maybe those in the party, but not the rest of the country. But I also want to allay your fears that we've seen ministries, we've seen agencies and departments go to Chankwanzi for retreats and for this ideological orientation and very many other things that happen. Back to your question, yes, in 2021 and February, I've attended the retreat. And I have to say that a retreat, a space that orientates or re-energizes individuals in the country, in their different spaces, to the alignment of what the country is focusing on. In terms of whether we have achieved or not, is that in these retreats, the president and the chair of the party, which is going to form the government, gives its strategic vision and direction in terms of policies, in terms of programs, in terms of budgets and all this kind of stuff. So the measurement of the performance of the retreats could be seen in different aspects. One is by way of looking at what government has achieved, because that was a foundation laid for leaders at that time. And I would pick one, particularly on the economy. You're aware that in the last 5 years, our economy has been so resilient in the region, and I think globally, that it is one of the fastest growing economies you can really, talk of. And I think we have grown from 5 to 6, and now we are 7. To me, that can be actually be taken as one of the key performance of our retreat, because in that retreat, government laid down their policies, their strategy, and what they wanted to achieve with the economy. Now, in terms of the legislative agenda, being in the 11th Parliament, I think as members of Parliament, yes, we can count a number of laws that we've enacted, but of course counting a number of laws does not translate. I know that an ordinary Ugandan in my village in Amolatar would be asking the same question, what does this retreat actually mean? And to an ordinary Ugandan is that these retreats presents an opportunity for government to plan for the wealth creation you're talking about, to plan for sources of revenue, because we usually have a lot of presentations and all that kind of stuff. So for the last 5 years, we have seen a very big shift and move by government of Uganda in terms of fiscal decentralization. This term, we sent 3.8 trillion to an ordinary Ugandan at the parish level in the names of PDM. To me, that is an achievement, because that is what happened during this term. And it was a key policy agenda that was presented to us to say we have done so much. In fact, in his talk, he will always say the difference between development and wealth creation. And he says, much as we've done so many roads, we have done all this infrastructure, it's time that we go and empower the local person to be able to produce and sell. And today is reiterating the same message, that we should mobilize our population to be productive, to be able to at least sell a product or a service. So for me, in terms of measurement, it is broad, depending on the parameters that we are looking at. But every retreat presents an opportunity for engagement, an opportunity to understand the dynamics of government, the way Honorable Mike was saying, that most of the members of parliament have never worked in government. They don't know how, the frameworks and the systems and the policies that they are there in. So I think we need to appreciate the opportunity that our leaders have. The question we should be asking is, how then do we put the knowledge we get, the exposure, and the understanding we get from the government's strategic priorities and direction, how do we translate that into now the actionable programs like the MIOGA, the PDMs, and
I'm glad you've mentioned PDM. And really thumb-chesting on 3 trillion shillings coming out. But we can also go as far as asking, 3 trillion has come out, but the report from the Auditor General shows 1.4 billion has been recovered only out of that money. We have had Ntandikwa, Bonabagaggawale. At what point do you evaluate these programs to see the trickle-down effect to the last Ugandan? Because in Amolata and Kampala, there's a whole different spectrum on how this is having impact.
Yeah. I think the role, the job of monitoring, oversight, and accountability is all spread to different agencies. But as Ugandans, as ordinary citizens of the country, we need to appreciate the fact that we are seeing government coming out to avail resources that can enable an ordinary Uganda be able to produce a product, to be productive, for a border to be able to, to serve, to get some little kind of money. Now, the issue of the efficiency and effectiveness of all these government programs is one element that we should actually be discussing. That yes, government has come forward and done this. How best are we, as citizens of this country, being able to leverage on some of these available services and opportunities that has come to us? So for me, yes, I even have questions myself as a leader about PDM, that we should not stop by mentioning the money that we've transferred. We should go an extra mile to make sure we've linked these people to the markets. We've been able to provide value addition to the products and all that. So those are discussions that are actually very pertinent, and that's why we are here, I guess. But we cannot rubbish that this retreat, what have you gained, or we've not seen any change and all that. There is definitely progress in all that we are trying to do as government.
Let me bring in the Honorable Mbide before I bring in Joseph and Honorable Captain Bab. The Honorable Mbide, first and foremost, your President General is here, and I know in some fora you said he's there as a cabinet minister, but also the General Katumba Wamala is not there. We know some cabinet ministers that are not there. But let me pick from what Honorable Mkula has said. He said this is a place that lobbying could happen for either commissioners, but also let's throw it in there for being becoming a minister. Is the NRM shooting first and aiming later? Because this, to translate to an ordinary Ugandan, looks like a photographic moment. Please, dissect this animal for us.
Thank you. First of all, to clear the air, particularly with regards to Honorable Mao, the guideline that included cabinet ministers had a subsequent inclusion that those that have won elections for the 12th parliament. And he happens to be one of them. Clearly, there is no other regard other than that specifically determines his invitation. Of course, we have social media ludic and bollocks that can create a lot of such misinformation, but clearly that is how he got invited as a cabinet minister. First of all, when you look at what is happening in Chankwanzi, if you want to give it some kind of democratic interpretation, some fair interpretation, you need to benchmark also other jurisdictions, what they do. One writer, I think that is Arthur Koestler in Darkness at Noon, once stated that a people's level to govern themselves democratically is proportionate to the degree of their understanding of the structure and the functioning of the whole social body. So clearly, there is no way you can lead a majority without that majority participating in arenas that would be in a position to align their thinking. When you look at several jurisdictions, the Russia Kremlin conferences and seminars, they are equally guided towards aligning their own entities. When you look at Chama cha Mapinduzi, the ideological school, China, United States, of course, political parties, particularly the Republicans and Democrats, also have got party retreats. Clearly, this is a retreat. It is an ideological alignment. What our discussion would entail, first of all, would be whether now the NRM itself has a clear ideology. Because for me, that would be the question. When you look at Article 6 of the Constitution, the NRM is ideologically multi-ideological. So clearly, to me, sometimes it begins to look like...
What's your understanding of that?
What it means?
Yes.
It looks like a madman throwing stones, and everything you hit, you call it the target. So for me, there must be substantive alignment of ideological anchor chains. When you look at the UPC, for example, and it is a social democracy, you know that all policy guidelines are inclined towards the establishment of a welfare society. Now, you cannot be both capitalist and the contrary. If you choose, then you can be social democrat. In such a way that you are saying there is going to be a welfare society. You can benchmark Norway, for example. At their discovery of oil in 1965, they inclined towards the establishment of a welfare state. When you fly to the Norway, you'll be driven in a Mercedes-Benz that a rich person also drives in Norway. You will be driven there as a cab. Why? For taxation purposes, equal opportunities policy demands that whoever buys it for public purposes is exempted in terms of tax. So clearly, everybody accesses the same. Why did the UPC create the establishment and the construction of public residences in Kololo, public beaches? It is to make sure both the poor and the rich live in the same homesteads. Now that was a determination of a welfare process. Now here, multi-ideological would imply, because ideologies are many, fascism, socialism. So unless you make a clear choice in terms of a scheduled list on the Constitution, nobody would know what actually which is which.
Honorable Mbide,
so
what happens to what Honorable Mike Mukula said, socio-economic transformation, Pan-Africanism, patriotism, democracy? What is wrong with these four ideas that the NRM is fronting? Nothing.
But there is everything wrong with what multi-ideology means. What Honorable Mukula has said is clear. Clearly, one can have the prerogomena of the constitution of the NRM would have to gear towards or to incline the national resistance movement policy framers into a specific direction. Are you engaging in trade democracy? For example, do you want capital from a selected few in order to industrialize and the others are workers? Or would you want, because if you now go Myoga, now you are social democrat. You are saying that there must be equal distribution of capacity amongst the population, and the volume of transactions would definitely interpret into the growth of the economy. But then, when you begin now doing a few assistances to, for example, the rich, then you are now preferring the capitalism that we ourselves would not know. So in my opinion, I think we need to align. The first candidates for the Chankwanzi retreat would have been the leaders themselves, before even the members of parliament are included. So cabinet itself ought to have gone there together. Of course, that is when they would now align. Yes, because they ought to have gone there first. The problem with me is that they are the ones teaching. They should not. They should be candidates for studying, not teaching. So, because teaching now espouses a process where they are going to pontificate. They are going to be the ones owning the ideological anchor chain, yet, in my opinion, they needed to also learn.
So who is supposed to be teaching?
Now, the technocrats would be in position to understand. Because these are fellows that are trained in what we are talking about. When you are talking about regional integration, don't invite politicians to teach you. Invite practitioners like Michael Mukula. They can teach you. So, I have seen politicians wanting to teach, and they are on the record. They shouldn't. They should not.
Personally, I was invited at that time to actually present a paper on the budgeting and rural financing in 2021. So they usually identify experts in that particular area.
If they were, we would not have questions on whether or not MEOG and PDM have performed. The World Bank has already come up with a report indicating guidelines that you cannot use a single poverty alleviation model in order to determine the eradication of poverty. It must be a multiplicity of models, and all those models should be field tested. Now, if you want now somebody to come and teach you simply because he has been in charge, then you are making a very big mistake. We need experts. They don't necessarily have to be from Uganda. They should be experts of those jurisdictions where material programs have excelled. That is where because we must begin to be using a benchmark approach in Uganda. Because if we begin comparing ourselves to the past, I think that kind of level is really lower. We must continue to benchmark ourselves from the relative spaces where we must be in position to also, because now when you look at what is happening, Mukula is very brilliant, and he has taken us through. He has almost habingered the establishment. He has foretold. We are going to have the first drop of oil, I think, by July 31st. We have got the eco pipeline. We do not have a caucus of members of parliament of the host communities of that pipeline. The members of parliament were invited almost twice, they never attended, because PDMs were not following the invitations. And me, these are things that technocrats needed to have told. Because, for example, the pipeline is going to be operational, dots are going to be in the... Now, what is going to happen in terms of fuel? Our only refinery has not yet identified the sources of financing. So, meaning we are going to produce oil without producing fuel. Now, what is going to be? So, there is going to be a problem, and we needed experts to take us through that kind of eventuality than a politician who has actually failed to do things in order to only campaign that he has done so in order for him to be given the same office. If we had experts, for example, in the airline industry, we wouldn't have failed the way we have. Because at each and every moment in time, the airline industry seems to be just a business about to start. Even when, because these experts here are not included in teaching what should happen. I remember there was one time, the owner, Captain Francis Babu, came here and he taught about the airline industry. If we had been listened to, we would not have fallen into the problems that we actually got in. So, for me, I am tired of politicians beginning to pontificate as if they have got the intelligence and the knowledge to take us forward. Yet, in any case, they need to be taught and given that intelligence.
Thank you very much. The president today addressed issues, Joseph, historical mission. He talked about, prosperity as one of them, talked about strategic security, went ahead to advise the members of parliament elect not to be involved in corruption, went to ideology, private sector-led growth. He also went ahead to emphasize that every Ugandan should either produce a good or a service for us to be able to prosper. When you see the president's address and you also look at the thematic areas, but also what other members have spoken about. What do you make of this retreat? He also pronounced himself on the speakership.
Yeah, I think one of the most unfortunate things today was for me to have gone through my X handles and seen headlines of his submissions at the retreat. And as it has been suggested by my good friend Mike, I have a problem because Chankwanzi actually traumatizes me, because in 1986, when this team came from the bushes, it was actually compulsory, Agnes, for heads of departments to go to Chankwanzi, for head teachers to go to Chankwanzi, for heads of medical facilities to go to Chankwanzi. And listening at Mr. Museveni today, I just thought that, well, could it have been a detoxification? Because prior to 1986, all the organizations and institutions and systems that worked have actually collapsed or are no longer working, and it appears this group of poor young guys are being taken there to be helped to help us to refocus on where we are. So that is one. So Chankwanzi is really effectively an indoctrination program for young NRA legislators.
What indoctrination?
But as Mike suggests, that it's about ideological orientation, interestingly, I actually get worried, because likely I'm a politician, I'm a political technocrat, but also a public servant. I do not expect that today I should meet anybody coming to Parliament next month and who's going to be paid by my money, and they have no clue what a role of a member of Parliament is. Number two, I get rather shocked that the political organization that has ruled this country for 40 years managed to go through campaigns, primaries, elections. People actively, if true, people actively went to sell their programs as individuals and parties as parliamentary candidates, and genuinely got elected unless they were selected. That to date, somebody is a member of parliament elect, allegedly of NRM, but they do not know what the ideological orientation of NRM is, or rather that they need to go and spend 9 days to study and appreciate the NRM manifesto. I find that really worrying. So possibly not surprising that as my colleagues were talking, I put my mind's eye at Agra Warrior's home. You know, I used to stop over at his place in Kibimba on my way home once in a while, and we have a chat. Fantastic leader. And so at Agra's home, you go to Kibimba Rice Scheme, a UPC project, and then we enter Busitema, National Agricultural College, and I go into Tororo, and I go to massive crude potholes into Rubongi Barracks, up to Nagongera. And on my way, I'll decide that I want to return to Kampala, say via Busolwe, in which case then I go to Tiringi Road. And so therefore, I map the entirety of Bukedi, and I consider what's happening when I last was at Amolata. And I look at the growth index, or indices as suggested by my colleagues, and I see nothing but poverty. And quite honestly, I do not see anything new from Agra Warrior's home to my home to Busolwe. And what I'm saying is that I expect a new member of parliament of any political organization to have appreciated these things. And in this case, is a member of parliament for NRM, to have been solid enough to be able to prepare themselves for May. As Mike suggests, retreats are not bad, but I get rather concerned that a 9 days retreat, in Agnes's case, they had 3 weeks. That's actually massively waste of public resources. So that means, really from today, for the next 9 days, Uganda is quiet.
But hold on.
We are serving,
Joseph,
the entirety.
Bringing the 350 plus members of parliament.
For 9 days.
For 9 days,
Yes.
including 72 independents, 40 who have signed
Yes.
MOUs there.
Yes.
To align them to what the
To align them.
to align them to what the NRM is futuristically looking at for the next 5 years. You seem to say it is a futile retreat, yet if they don't whip each other into the same direction, they'll all still be moving in different directions. Wouldn't this be credit to them for trying to get themselves on the same road to move in the same direction?
You know, very lucky. The first member of parliament and minister for UPC in Obote 1 from Tororo was Minister of Public Service and Cabinet Affairs. And public services was excellent. Local government, excellent. Actually, local government. In Obote 2, the government side chief whip
But
was
Joseph,
my member of parliament.
there's a very big difference.
I'm answering. I'm
This
answering.
is 46 million people.
Yeah.
That was about less than 15 million people.
No, that's a very simplistic argument.
So really-
look, Timothy, I'm suggesting there is a government side chief whip. So they don't have to go to Chankwanzi fast for 9 days in order for them to behave. Basically, what I'm saying, Mike, and you're the lead person here, retreats are okay. I have attended retreats of political parties, the Labour Party and others. We've done this. I've trained people. I've trained members of, I've trained local politicians, intending politicians, budgeting politicians. I've interviewed politicians, people who intend to go to stand for councils and things like that. I think a weekend retreat is okay. 9 days, there's something else. No wonder people are advising that when you're coming, make sure your bag is properly packed. You know? So those are my concerns. But that said, again, you raise another important question. And that's why this topic today, initially I was going to say, is it a bit of a waste of time? But national, I think it's an opportunity for us to review that we deliver manifestos. NRM is very lucky. They get elected seemingly for the last 40 years continuously. They govern. And then our job now is to review what have they been doing in 1986. 1988, as I said, I remember Mr. Museveni in a very combative mode, holding a chalk, teaching people about how Uganda Railway is going to work in 1988. Where did the railways go? You know, so it is fair enough Ugandans must say that, look, where have they been going? Is there anything going to be new for this one? In fact, anything, my argument is going to be that, look, is this retreat going to be different? The young people that Mike is completely convinced that, and quite rightly because they're predominantly young, that they're going to be reoriented. They might actually come and become the radical, bang the table and say, no, not anymore. We want to have a new parliament, a parliament in which there's no corruption, a parliament which does the job of oversight, an assembly in which we go ahead and serve our people. I am tired of making sure that I spend my money and every other time I go to my home, people are asking me for school fees. I need to make sure that I invest in Nagongara Primary School, I invest in Amolatan, Namasale, Dokolo Road, that I campaign about, by the way. I campaign around local schools in Awelo, and I want to make sure that in Alemere Primary School, a young primary school kid is able to go to Test College, Aloit, and become a Mike Mukolo of tomorrow. I don't see that. That is part of the campaign. That's part of the conversation. At the moment, unless these legislators are reorientated in that direction, you know, it's a waste of time, a waste of public resources, and as I said, I generally get very worried because they represent the majority at the moment of the political elite. And if we are not able to relate what they do there with what we expect them to do, then I think it's another waste of time. But a quick one. I'm rather concerned. I don't know the cost of this. Granted, it may be an NRA thing, so it's not public offers. But whatever the case, some of these are public servants whom I expect to find in their offices tomorrow. And I'll feel very jittery tomorrow, Thursday, if I go to an office and I'm told somebody is attending an NRA retreat instead of serving me an average citizen.
The technocrats are there. Let me come to the Honorable Captain Francis Babu.
Yes.
First and foremost, we missed you in the conversation between the US and Iran, but that conversation will come back some other day.
No, that one is a very simple one.
Let's come to the conversation today.
Yes.
Honorable, when you look, you are a senior citizen, you have been part of this.
Even a citizen remove, I'm a Ugandan.
You're Ugandan.
That's the main thing. Yes.
When you look at this from the
People
lenses...
are worried about our age. No, don't forget about the age. Ugandan.
Ugandan.
Yes.
From your lenses, when you look at this retreat and look at the Ugandan who needs a service, a good, needs to be able to put food on the table, do these two seem to have a fusion anywhere?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You've just elected members of parliament.
Yes.
And they came and campaigned on a particular platform. They have a certain ideology. By the way, I disagree with all these textbook definitions of ideology, democracy. Eh? When did the ideology start in modern politics? Let's go back. After the Industrial Revolution in Europe, what was the ideological basis? Very simple. You had on one side people, after the French Revolution, who said they wanted something called communism. Mm. You had another group on the other side say they wanted capitalism. It's all based on the economy. Who controls the economy? And what sort of economy you're controlling? Is that so? Mm. So if you have on one side, you have communism and you have democracy and you have capitalism on the other side, and then you start moving inside and you come right in the middle, you get to something called socialism, isn't it? And if you move towards communism a little bit more, they say, no, he's a little bit leftist. When you move on the other side, going to the other side, they say, he's a rightist. Those are textbook things for propaganda. But you look at our countries with these modern, young, vibrant people like Honorable Mbide, who are bubbling with words and ideas, must be put right. You can't be like China is, mainly communism. They have now introduced a little bit of capitalism in certain areas in their country. You can also be a country, have a democracy of your type. Because of our population and how the national cake is distributed, you could have ideologies that help. One, you can have the capitalistic group going ahead with their work. Mm. You can have another group which works for the capitalists. You can have the poor group that you would like to pull up. These are all ideas. How you do it depends on the system that you choose. So I like to put this right. Uganda can have different ideologies for different things. Now, let me very quickly give you a reference. A man who's now the president of Bangladesh, a professor, started something called the Grameen Bank, People's Bank. He was giving microfinance to poor women and people who had small businesses in that vast capitalistic country. South Korea has the same thing. Meanwhile, these other people can continue with what they are doing and at the same time helping the other people to come up. So you can have these in a country. And I'm happy that people are talking about poverty. There is a major thrust in fighting poverty in this country. Whether done nicely or not, we can talk about the pros and cons of people who implement it. Mm. Now, after we've done that, we then bring all these people, nice people, who have been elected as the new members of parliament, as a party. And by the way, I also propose the other parties should do the same.
Have retreats?
Oh, yes. They should have a small retreat and talk to their members of parliament. And if he's one, the party itself has a meeting and they talk to him. So, this is what is supposed to be done. Now, first of all, what do you do when you go to a nice retreat like this? It's an orientation. You've done very well, thank you very much. We congratulate you, but this is what our mission is. And by the way, thank you very much for mentioning the presidential mission. I had not heard about it.
The historical mission.
That is what it is. Mm. By the way, missions are ongoing. It's not a one-day affair. That when you talk there, tomorrow morning it becomes effective. No. Some of these things are continuously and they move on. And by the way, across the board, most political parties do the same thing. So, when you listen to the president, that's what he has said. Now, he has put it on record, so I can now audit him as a president. This is what you said in Chankwanzi. Is this what you're doing? He gives us a basis of auditing him as Ugandans. After you've done that, then you introduce these people to a cohesion in a party. What does, now this is another problem, by the way. Let me stop there a little bit. When we were doing the constitution, we said we wanted a presidential system of government. You elect the president, you elect members of parliament. In America, they're called the Senate and so on and so forth. The question is, we were not supposed to have a Westminster parliament. What we have here is a parliamentary system in parliament and a presidential system for the president. You're having opposition and government side. In the presidential system, it should have been the minority and the majority. Are you with me, sir? Mm. So this is how the parliament would be. And by the way, thank you very much for mentioning parliament. They are having their induction, as they've called it, on Monday the 15th at the hotel down the road here, African. Now, that is parliament now. Parliament has to do that for members of parliament, to give them the procedures of parliament, to talk about the rules, to talk, and by the way, those elections you're talking about, that's where they're going to be. Because those there, all of them will be there, including all the other members. They will talk about the commission, they will talk about all those things. And by I've seen the list of the people they invited. Unlike what other people say, these are not only politicians, some of them are extremely respectable people, and professors for that matter. Ugandans like those titles, you know, professor, PhD, there are people who are qualified even with 1 degree to be able to teach. Now, another point, I've heard the word politician. Man is a political animal. Every man and woman is a politician. And therefore, to differentiate, and I'm happy that my friend went further to say, oh, when Captain Babu came here and he went out of the way to talk about the airline, but I still do politics also.
You're a practitioner.
So if that was the point,
the point was practitioner.
I'm trying to come up. Yeah. There are people who are in politics who can do a good job. Yes. In giving people the way forward. Now, let's forget about the playground. No party will go to parliament in a parliamentary system, which we are now using, without talking to its members and bringing them on board. And also telling them that this is the NDP4. You know what NDP4 is? Now, that is the basis of the planning of this government, NDP4. We must tell the members, well, please go and study a little bit more about this, and we can even give you more books. Somebody will talk about it. Somebody is going to come and talk about how to respect each other in parliament. Somebody is going to talk about the etiquettes, the respect to the minister, the rules that will be brought in the induction. Now, this argument about, by the way, I'm a little bit disappointed, and this is what you people should talk about. Oh, the independent, 20 of them signed. Why? Why do you talk about this? Independent wants to support that side, is free to do so. In my opinion, you shouldn't go around making it a sing-song. But he signed, they signed. Why? You actually harm them. There's no need to say this. Another point I've had, and I've been hearing this, oh, this 12 parliament, I don't know if it will perform very well. Please, 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 I'm begging all of you, leave the new members of parliament. Let's go through orientation. Let's go through induction. Let them go to parliament. Then we can judge them. Are you with me?
Yes.
Now, I've had some very good points here. If they are going to talk about how to elevate and bring our people from where they are to a higher level, and you remove poverty and all that, yes, that is an ongoing program. What has been the problem? Let me tell you, the problem in this country is our behavior and our character, which unfortunately is not in textbook except psychology. Our people, the ones who are in these programs, have completely become very nasty. They have sabotaged them. They have done all sorts of things. Luckily for us, and it's a good point you brought it up, they should give us the statistics. How has the PDM performed. Is it 80%? Is it 70%? And that is a good idea. I agree with you entirely. And the Minister of Finance should have those figures. The other point you brought up, which I thought was a very, very good point, is how are these people going to relate to each other? That's why they're in Chankwanzi. You see, I've sat in Parliament, and there are people in Parliament who actually don't know why they're there. These ones need to be brought on board. And then there are new things. One of the things that I would like them to talk about is to make them learn how to read, how to use the tablets they give them, how to use computers. And if possible, I would like them to have classes in Swahili. Because we have said we want Swahili is our second national language, which will come eventually. So in that place, we should have somebody speaking Swahili and telling them we are going to start classes. These are the kind of things that I would like to say. Now, one of the things that I would like to end with, I would like all of them to renounce the word called corruption. Renounce. On a Bible.
Or a Quran.
Or a Quran. They must renounce corruption. And by the way, I think the oath, even in Parliament, the oath of members of Parliament, the oath of ministers, the oath of the President should have a little word saying, we renounce corruption. And then the same members of Parliament should come out with a punishment for corrupt people, which will dare them not to be corrupt. Now, when you talk about a retreat, please let us give them ideas instead of looking, because the Secretary General has put out an agenda. At the end of that agenda, there is AOB. Now, AOB, that's where they are going to discuss all these nice things my friend was talking about, campaigning, asking whether they can become this or that. Fine. And by the way, you say that the President said he talked about the Speaker. What did he say?
The President was clear. He said SEC has made an announcement, but the election, and we shall give justification for our pronouncement at that time. So literally leaving it open.
Okay, right. Well, that means there's still a window. There's still a window. So these are the kind of things we should, by the way, we should not discourage any meeting of any party. Because when yesterday I was talking to somebody about the same topic, they said, but the other people are not allowed to do the same thing. I said, but that's wrong. You are members of IPOD, all of you. In IPOD, you should say, we also want to hold the same thing. And they also told me something, that we are not allowed to go to Chankwanzi. Let it be clear that IPOD should ask the government that Chankwanzi should become an institute for all.
Okay.
And after NRM, the other groups can also go there. And I think it should be made, attractive. But it has changed a lot. When I first went there, we were sleeping in huts made of grass. Today, they are living in a very, very comfortable area. Now, another point that I would like to make out, let us not discourage anybody. This is for Uganda. Let's tell the Ugandans the truth, that your members of Parliament, their behavior and their function of bridging their constituencies to Parliament, and at the same time taking back the information from Parliament and other institutions of government, they will do it effectively.
Okay.
This is what we should tell our people, and not to discourage. This indoctrination thing, by the way, indoctrination is a very interesting. Look at the definition.
Thank you.
When everybody who belongs to their party, if you say the way some of them talk, I think they're already indoctrinated. So it really depends who is talking about indoctrination.
Captain Babu, let me read some feedback so that we can take a break. Good evening, Timothy. NRM should stop using statistics to peddle lies about the high levels of economic growth. Our seemingly high growth because of our economy is very small. Let me illustrate. I have one cow. I get another one. You have 100% growth. If your neighbor with 100 cows gets 10 more, that's mere 10% growth. Who among us is better off? This is Benjamin in Kampala. Timothy, you nearly interrupted Ocheno by talking about the population of Uganda in the 80s. Is there a positive correlation between the high population and disorganization? If that was the case, Somalia would be more organized than China. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Timothy, for the show. My name is Daniel Milton, texting from Lira. I totally agree with Honorable Mbide. I read one of the articles coming from one of the very muddy leaders of this country, asking the newly elected MPs to protect the Constitution at all costs, yet she is seen even by the blind at all costs defiling it, and the same Constitution. Chankwanzi retreat is just a showbiz, opportunists that are there. Okay, very hard words there. My name is Anwari George, former DP parliamentary candidate for Lamore constituency. Thank you for the panelists. NRM vision for Uganda is like a man painting his old iron sheets roof house with different colors, excited about it, his children. Today the green, tomorrow the blue, the next day the yellow, but the house continues to leak. Nothing new. I am watching from Lamore. Okay. Human capital, lastly. Human capital is, NRM has failed. We have professionals but the sectors are understaffed, underpaid, like the medics. The parliament is not an example to the population. They are selfish. This is Simon from Chikube district. Okay, thank you for the feedback. We'll wait for more coming through there, but let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be splitting atoms of the issues like human capital, the economy, after this break.
When you don't use Momo, you get insulted by strangers. Save yourself from insults. Use the Momo app or dial *165 *3# to pay and enjoy zero charges below 5K. That's the power of Momo.
It's back, bigger, and with more business opportunities. It's the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo, Poate 2026, Uganda's flagship tourism event. Poate 2026 will take place from the 21st to the 23rd of May 2026 at the Speak Resort Convention Center, Munyonyo, under the theme Wanderlust. It's your time to thrive. Yes, it's your time to tap into Uganda's renewed optimism and tourism growth. Tourism stakeholders, travel trade partners, and tourism enthusiasts will be part of the Poate 2026. Come and network with like-minded people and unlock new business opportunities. To participate, register at www.poate.co.ug. Poate 2026 is brought to you by Uganda Tourism Board and partners.
The government's core mandate is to maintain law and order, safeguard citizens' rights, and provide essential public services.
Remember, one of the pillars of a roadmap is innovation and entrepreneurship.
There has been this question of how are you protecting our indigenous seed?
It's going to be a tall project. That answers somebody's question.
The Front Bench has brought you insightful discussions on governance, security, healthcare, justice, and commerce.
Why do you go through this complicated procedure, involve the lawyers? You bring the case against him, the judge will hear you out and pass judgment, and you're out of court in record time.
We remain committed to keeping you informed and engaged on key national matters.
So these are huge, these are powerful organizations which now Uganda chairs. Why don't you come together?
If we haven't migrated to the e-card because of various reasons, including that not all the people of Uganda have smartphones.
You can sit in your house, apply for a passport. If you have a Ugandan who has a successful logistics firm in the US, it means he can come to Uganda and do a lot more.
Every Monday at 8:30 p.m. with me, Jethro Kasaiji, your interface with the government only on your public broadcaster, UBC, Inspiring Uganda.
Welcome back from that quick commercial break here on Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangusa. I'm joined by Joseph Ocheno, Dr. Honorable Ape Ati Magnus, representing the people of Amlata. She's the woman representative there. The Honorable Mukasa Fred Mbide, the Deputy President of the Democratic Party. I'm also joined by the Honorable Captain Francis Babu. And finally, I'm also joined by the Honorable Captain Mike Mukula. We're discussing the NRM retreat, and we're going to get into the nuts and bolts. I see some messages still coming through. We'll get to those at the top of the hour. Honorable Mukula, allow me come to you. The NRM has emphatically emphasized socio-economic transformation. This is the second cycle of the National Development Plan 4. When you evaluate yourselves, leave the nice words of the economic growth, it's at 7%, projections, tenfold growth. Let's talk about the real ordinary Ugandan. A person in Amolata, a person in Busia, a person in Soroti. Has this translated there?
Timothy, when you read the books of political economy or study political economy brings together ideas from politics which marry into economics. That's what political economy is. That marriage in this retreat generates what you call a confluence of ideas. It's a cross-pollination of multi-sectoral presentations, because you cannot tackle poverty without knowing where you've come from, where you are today, and where you're going. To relate to your question, let me tell you one very important thing. When you look at Uganda as it were today, 80% of the population of Uganda is below the age of 30. 55% of the population of Uganda is below the age of 16 years. Between 0, born today, and 4 years is 8 million children. Uganda's population growth is at about 3.2%. When you look at the macroeconomic well-being of the country is stable, meaning that despite these demographics, the majority of the population does not pay taxes. And one wonders, why aren't we bringing many people into the tax bracket? 55% of the population is below the age of 16 years. That should be able to give you a wake-up call to say that we are navigating a population or an economy, much as we have vertical growth, making Uganda one of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world. We still have challenges. And how do you relate this? That's why the misogynics comes in to say, now the 68%, how do you bring them into the money economy? And that's the question you're asking. And that's why parish development model comes in to say that those who are able and those who qualify, in the last budgets, we are allocating 1.1 trillion to this parish development model. We are now moving this up and amplifying it further, and the money going down to the young people, to the women, to also under the PDM has now been widened, meaning that we are now bringing in a framework where we embrace the ordinary people to bring him into the economy. Now, the value addition comes in now. And this is how you grow economies all over the world. That's when you talk about political economy. Now, you have in this retreat multi-sectoral presenters, people who have been educated, people who are known and have got influence in agriculture, in health, people who are in the economy, and so on and so forth, who come in and give presentation and papers to members of parliament. What is parliament? The French have a very clear understanding of what parliament is, parler, to talk. Members of parliament are representatives of the people you're talking about.
Honorable Captain Mukula, let me come to some of the things you have mentioned. You have mentioned 55% is under 16.
Yes.
You have also mentioned that the 68% that are in subsistence, that you want to come in the money economy. But I would like to put this to you. We have had Youth Livelihood Fund, Entandikwa, Bonnaba Gaggawale, we have PDM, we have the Grow Project, and Honorable Babu said, actually it was Honorable Mbide who said, this is a multifaceted problem that we're solving with one silver bullet. How prepared is this government for the 55% of those young people to find an environment that is enabling, credit that is available, but also most of all, how prepared are you for multi-dimensional poverty? Because now poverty has changed. How prepared are you? Are you the government to get us from where we are to where we're supposed to be? And do you have an idea where that is?
When you look at UNDP 4 and Uganda's Strategic Development Goal 2040, it tells you exactly the roadmap which has been well thought out. It also tells you that in order to drive the economy to where we are, there are certain parameters, what you call the fundamentals of the economy, that you must grow and must be given priority in the allocation of resources in the budget. And that's where you are dealing with the ordinary person, and you're talking about the demographics. In order for you to lay the golden eggs, and those are the ones that eventually will come in and pay the taxes you're talking about. I pay taxes, and I'm one of the big taxpayers in this country. Humble. I want to tell you with the clarity that Uganda, by 1986, look at electricity, which is a very, what you call a primer in the economic growth. By 1986, we had only 2 generators working in Owen Falls Dam, generating 62.5 megawatts of electricity. We have built 5 major dams. Let me give you a clarity on this. Allow me first to generate this properly.
The 1986 conversation is not applicable now. We're asking you between 2021, 2026 to 2031. That's the conversation. We appreciate where we're coming from. We have no questions about that. But where we are and where we anticipate to be, are you the government to get us there?
Precisely. That's why you'll find that when you look at the statistics, because statistics are a function of science, what you call analytics, which give you the narrative of what is obtaining in our economy. It's like diagnosis. When you look at the fundamentals, it tells you very clearly without any uncertainty that poverty has dropped. We are now at about slightly north of 22–23%. That's where it is. We still have poverty, but it has dropped from where the figures were. 2, when you look at literacy rates, they have grown. When you look at access to electricity, it has grown. When you look at access to health care, it may not be perfect, but you now have reduced when you look at the health sector strategic plan 1, 2, 3, going forward, you have seen that access to health care, it may not be perfect. At least you don't walk more than 5 kilometers to the nearest health center. Now, all these are parameters that drive and talk to the ordinary person. That's why you find that the national resistance movement performed well because of the PDM. If you go and talk to a person in Amolatar, in Tororo, where my brother comes from, they will tell you now, I received 1 million shillings. And this is a game changer. Now, when you look at the big picture, what Mao Zedong used to talk about, and you look at the strategic drive of this revolution, bringing people into the economy, you can see that PDM has been a game changer in our national drive towards reduction of poverty, because we now have major challenges in reducing poverty, what Obote used to call the evils, the devils. I think Otieno here would be able to answer it more. You know, as opposed to the retreat UPC used to have, of going to Bushenyi, and you have 2 weeks of merrymaking, the national resistance movement is going to agenda setting. What do we do for our ordinary people? And that's why I want to tell you with all clarity that the national resistance movement has, first of all, when you look at the key components of bringing the country together, no political organization has been able to bring the whole of Uganda together like NRM has done. But at the same time, answer to the narrative and the expectations of the people. And that is, to the young people, addressing, reducing poverty, addressing youth unemployment, tackling corruption, equitable distribution of resources, and ensuring that there is access to good governance in this country.
Lastly, before I get to Captain Babu, you mentioned literacy, and the report shows it's about 72–76% there. But the same Education Ministry put out an abstract report in 2019 that showed enrollment was at 8 million. But the ones who go to secondary school is 1 million. The ones who show up in university are about 40,000. Where is the 7.6 million that are missing in school, and you're still thumb-chesting about literacy? And isn't this disparity of the statistics by the NRM, doesn't that give you concern?
Well, it is very concerning to anybody, any parent, any Ugandan. It's very concerning. But it also got to look at the social economic framework of our country. Let me give you a very important point for you to note. When you look at that study of the school dropout, the girl child, for example, who I'm very emotionally attached to, the girl child, because of menstruation and pads, just pads, when it reaches the age of 12, 13, 14, some start even earlier, the mere fact that she gets into that embarrassment disengages her from education. That's one aspect. Number two is that there are many other components that, for example, feeding, school feeding. That's a major component that now needs to be encompassed in terms of addressing the dropout in schools. So when you look at that paper, which narrates and gives you why there is dropouts in secondary schools, government now has prepared a very comprehensive narrative, a paper, to answer to that component of why our children are dropping out from school. But the policy of universal primary education, the policy of universal secondary education, and this is the mass element of the national resistance movement, this ideological firm position, mass meaning that for everybody, the policy is there. The only thing is that how do we fine-tune it? How do we make sure that it works to the clock? In any case, you may never get a perfect situation. But the idea of a wider component of ensuring that we have a policy which embraces our children to free universal primary education, free universal secondary education, and so on and so forth, is being implemented by government of Uganda.
Thank you very much. Let me come to the Honorable Captain Francis Babu. Honorable, we have a young population, and you keep alluding to it. And the statistics by UBOS, if they're to go by 55, 78, under 30, we have potential of a workforce that can be able to, they're willing to work. Where are we missing the point between this retreat and the human capital we have that is ready to work?
You're talking about manpower survey. There is a write-up on that issue. So to really sit here, and it must be a topic for a whole evening.
True.
We'll bring a manpower survey and look at jobs available and those who must get jobs. It's a good point. Ever heard of something called SDGs?
Yes.
Yeah? Now, SDGs, a United Nations agreement between all nations, including Uganda. And the SDGs were very clear. And we have a complete person in the Ministry of the in the Prime Minister's office,
yes,
who actually follows up the SDGs. SDGs up to 2030. And you want to see how much of those have you performed. Now, again, if we want to talk about this effectively, we need to get a report on the performance of NDP 4. How
NDP
far?
4, NDP 3.
3 and 4, both.
Okay. 4 is...
Yeah, even midterm, they have midterm, they do. So we have 3, and then we can have 4 and see how far they've performed. I agree with you entirely. And what they are talking about, basically, in those programs, is poverty alleviation. I've got all of them here. They talk about industrialization. And the question is, if you look at Mukono district at the moment, they are getting a lot of industries there. And when somebody the other day was saying, what is our gains? One gentleman kindly said, the people of Mukono have gained because the industries there have provided jobs. They have provided a new group of people, young, educated, and can do those jobs. So there is the industrialization, which is part of the National Development Plan. Then you have health. How far have we gone into health? If I look very carefully, some of the hospitals have been repaired and they continue to be repaired depending on our budget. A friend of mine actually told me Kiboga Hospital is one of the best. I would like to know about the others because I don't have the statistics. Mulago, as we see now, the old Mulago, you know the whole Mulago, has got a plan to build completely a new hospital there. So these are in the plan. Now, the next thing, you talked about the principle of universal primary and secondary education in our economy. And it was introduced. Initially...
Actually, it was the man who was the minister in charge of primary education.
When we introduced it, even the teachers didn't like it because we seem to have stepped on the wrong toe. We eventually introduced them. It started working. So whatever numbers you have quoted, I don't know what the numbers are now, I'll be very unfair. Because nowadays I'm enjoying my retirement. I don't have time to keep numbers in my head. You know, I keep times for food much more than anything else. So if you want to get that, we get the statistics and talk about them thoroughly. And the Minister of Education and the Minister of Finance every year has got a report on how the budget has performed that year. And in the last few years, no budget has gone below 80% performance. So this development, the national development goal, is being also is within that. Now, the question you could ask, what has happened to the other 20%? These are things we can talk about. I agree with you entirely, and this is where these new members of parliament come in. They can help us in their different committees to try and talk about these issues when these ministries come to them. We've got also education as such. You're talking about the primary and the 1 million who end up not go to university. There are problems. What are the problems? Tell us. I want them to tell us. And that question should be put to them. Because me sitting here and thinking, but you guys, you're the ones who are implementing. Why aren't you implementing? So those are the questions we need to answer. Has the government removed, for example, the cap on teachers? You know, there's a cap on teachers. Government cannot employ beyond a certain cap of teachers. Do we have enough teachers? Do we teach because the people who make education, and let me give you this for free, is not the building, it is the teacher who teaches the children, who makes them do. Of course, if they were sitting in a nice, comfortable classroom, they would do even better. But the whole important thing is, do we have enough teachers? These are questions we should ask. The other point is the implementation of other programs. For example, a lot of people have been saying nasty things about the microfinances that we have. In fact, you mentioned all of them. The question is, how did they perform? We would like to see the performance numbers. Because I sit here And you talk about the youth, you talk about all the other things which I've heard about, and nobody seems to come out. The only thing I hear, and this is propaganda, they have eaten the money. Okay, bring them to court. I'm not saying they are not there. How much of that money has been eaten? Let me tell you, one of our biggest problems in implementing the programs of government has been the word corruption. Unless if we work on it, we're wasting our time. The Ugandans who work in government, the Ugandans who work in different places are very good workers, but they need that word to be looked at in its entirety. Not about exchanging money. No. Corruption against talent, for example. Get a man like Mukasambide, is very, very clever. Make sure he doesn't go, he doesn't do this. Your corrupt mind says you should block him. Political parties, don't allow them to operate. You are blocking them. That's corruption. So you people are talking about all these things. Our biggest problem is our mind. How do we make our mind work for Uganda? When you work for Uganda, you are working for yourself. So to sit here and moan, no. Where is the problem? What are we doing with these corrupt people? I say, you take a corrupt man to police. By the time you reach home, he has arrived before you. Corruption. The way transport is regulated and managed. Corruption. The way in our good hospitals, there is corruption. How do we fight that? If you can fight that and get this order of the day, like Lee Kuan Yew did in Singapore, because Lee Kuan Yew, from the order, the first day he said, the worst thing you can have is corruption. Because corruption kills institutions, corruption kills talent, the talent that would have built the country. Corruption kills good leaders because people are against them. Corruption kills our relationship with other countries. And then the big countries are very happy when you are corrupt, because then they can put you on a leash and control you. So we need to wake up. All these things you are talking about, by the way, the statistics are there. And the bad people are there. They are known. Ugandans, these Ugandans you see, they know each one of us. How we behave, what we say, and what we do. Therefore, if you want to be a Ugandan, do a good Ugandan. Do what you would like to be done to you, to others. And a good leader is the one who makes another leader. You are not a good leader unless if you are making another leader. And making Ugandans, for example, if I was the chairman of an LC1 in a village, I would make everybody a leader. Responsible. You become a leader in LC1. You become a leader at the Gombora level. You become a leader in the nation. So when they are in Chankwanzi, and this is going to be my last one, they should make them leaders. Whoever is talking to the people in Chankwanzi should live there after making them leaders who love Uganda. And lastly, by the way, political parties doesn't mean enmity. The people in different parties are brothers and sisters. This divide and rule game which everybody has been playing, which we inherited from our British brothers, stop it. There's no need. And then we should come down here and build our nation. Let those who don't agree with you start their party. But when we meet in the evening, we have a cup of tea, you know. We must teach you these good manners. Teach tea, have a good drink, like each other. And before I end, by the way, I forgot. My good friend, and a very personal good friend of mine, Mr. Mufumbiro, lost his wife.
That's true.
And I forgot to say it. That's a young man. He's got his vibration. Listen. But he has lost his wife. And therefore, all of us, including those who are in jail, they should allow him to go and bury his wife. Please.
Thank you. Let me come to the Honorable Mukasambide. Let's talk about regional integration. You having been at Yala, and one of the things that, how important is it, especially for the countries that are involved, and can we how do we bring our interests to align so that we all are moving? Because the downfall of the railway was really politics, different interests. How important is the regional integration? The president mentioned it. It's one of the things they're going to be able to articulate there. But also, allow me to add this question to it. We're working on the standard gauge rail. Money has been set aside for it. That's one. But there is also the Jinja-Kampala Express. There is the water that is there. Then we have the millimeter gauge railway. What should inform infrastructure development? Because these 12 districts in the eastern region are going to have the SGA, they're going to have the SGR, sorry, they're going to have the Jinja Express, they have the water to be able to transport things, but we're still creating infrastructure for the same reason, goods and people.
When he finishes, I would like to talk a little bit about integration.
Okay.
Please.
What Ugandans need to know, integration sometimes sounds like rocket science, but I would like you to understand it is simply a creation of markets.
Yeah.
The mind of a Ugandan quickly runs towards the creation of one East African country, which really is far-fetched, and we might not realize it during our lifetime. And it doesn't even matter that much. What matters is you have to understand integration as East Africa being one country for tax purposes, one country for market purposes, and now it is going to be one country for monetary purposes. So if you place yourself, it will be an act in self-delusion for you to begin to think that you're going to see one country where every president has resigned, they have become district leaders, and one East Africa has created a country. So that is delusional. So, but what we can know is that the establishment of a compounded, widened market of over 340 million buyers for every commodity produced in East Africa interprets ultimately into capitalization of your own pockets. So clearly East Africans should be in position to help to support this. However, Uganda, by the way, stands a chance of becoming the African economic Eldorado. It is a center of economics. I have looked at the creation of, first of all, we are the center that ultimately is going to have outlets to both the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. We now even have an outlet through Djibouti port, which has been generated by the DESU, the authority that has been worked on by leaders of Ethiopia and Genosale, South Sudan, and Djibouti, ultimately. That route through Nimule is equally now becoming something that every trader is going to enjoy. The route to the Atlantic coast through DRC, of course punctuated by a design to raise infrastructure work, capitalized by Uganda. Most people do not understand this, but if a manufacturer does not have a ready market, because we are grappling with the African growth and opportunity outlet, each time it is closed and opened, depending on whether or not we have definitely fulfilled requirements. We have been glossing over the economic partnership agreement, but I can tell you that only trading with the Congo, only one country, Congo, the volume of transactions that can be engaged in between Uganda and the Congo, once infrastructure alignments have been put in place, are better than both the EPAS and AGOA markets combined. So clearly, our trade within East Africa can make us superpowers than even any other trade with anywhere. So what we need to do, however, I think we need to accompany this with very serious policies. When you look at industrialization, as of course one of the major precincts within the UNDP 4, NDP 4,
5 coming,
and 5 is also coming. Now, if we don't punctuate that with a wage labor and immigration policy, where, for example, of course we have occasioned that industrialization does not do away with the foreign direct investment. Now, without a compounded effort to limit the influx of the real investors taking over the labor factor here in Uganda, we may create jobs, but the industrialists will take them. To the extent that you find the investor is the managing director, his brother is the general manager, the cashier is actually the niece, they are all Chinese. What Ugandan can only do is to be able to carry the bales of what has been produced to a lorry. But even the person counting the bales is Chinese. So you find that the jobs created by way of our statute books are actually not interpreting into Ugandans being employed. So formal employment is key to establishment of a situation. But where is the formal employment? Recently, under the World Economic Forum, something funny has actually been told to the world. That particularly Africa and many other economies are going to suffer from what they called the job apocalypse because of the introduction of artificial intelligence and automations. Now, the meaning is that industrialization per se may not interpret into job market.
That's why Museveni said the fourth industrial estate of computers. Now is where we're going.
Yes. So we are not going to count industries to ultimately interpret into job creation. No. Because industries under development, artificial intelligence and automatons will come with their own robotics that will definitely do the job. And the Ugandans shall ultimately not get employed. However, of course we are excelling in labor externalization. For me, I believe that labor as a factor of production can be exported. It can also be sold locally. But what is the quality of the agreements of sale of our own labor outside? So now that is where we need to teach our own government to focus. If we don't have a bilateral agreement with Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is very emphatic that no lawyer can practice law in Saudi Arabia except if you're a national, then there must be a bilateral agreement creating a tribunal that will sort out our labor disputes between our own children and those that actually buy our labor. Now, if we don't focus on those, the statistics will be very fine, but the repercussions on the ground will not interpret as equals. Finally, where is the performance assessment and innovation program for Uganda? Because you see, we have got almost the best. I can tell you, in terms of statistics, we are the best. In terms of programs, we are the best. But who does the performance assessment and innovation? Where is the performance assessment and innovation unit? In Uganda. Why is it that there is always a commencement process of programs? The follow-up procedure, however, is not as equally energetic as it is. So that government begins to obambulate into almost all avenues, but ultimately concluding in none. Now, there is a problem there. The SGR. Of course, we are running, because some of these are East African Community infrastructure programs. The problem that we have in the East African Community Treaty is the establishment of the principle of variable geometry. You see, that principle allows the partner states to, by consensus, take decisions. But implementation can be as and when a partner state is willing to do so and able to do so. So you find that there are partner states that run so fast. There are others that are actually the slowest ship in the convoy of implementation, and Uganda is almost one of them. It is because we are actually given a leverage to start as and when we presume. There is a lot of peace given to the corrupt. And that peace, the Honorable Captain Babu has just talked about it. By the way, unless we sound a whip, unless we are emphatic on fighting corruption, it can be judicial, it can be even business corruption. You find people who are supposed to be technocrats becoming tumbocrats. Then you find people pretending as if they are businessmen, yet they are tenderpreneurs. So you see, it is all a function of corruption that can deter. Otherwise would have been the best programs that Uganda actually,
thank you,
going forward wishes to conduct.
A quick comment, Captain Babu, before I come to Honorable.
In fact, you said very, Actually, Dr. Julius Nyerere, on the question of United States of Africa, clearly said, let's start with small groups like East African Community, which was Uganda, Kenya, Tanganyika then. And then from there, we can sort of coalesce them together. After these three have got there. Now, the British wanted to have a federation here. It is us who made it difficult for them. We failed to understand what it would entail. And today, some of us are talking about, we want a federation. You cannot have a federation in a small group when they gave you a good federation, which you refused. Now, he said something about federation, not to worry too much about federation. What you're having in the integration problem now, they have done a lot of things. They have done marketing, they have the common custom unions, they have done a lot of things. The problem has been, as he has said, some countries implement quickly, others don't. So we have a little bit of a problem there. And since our president now is the chairman, the next question would be, how can you galvanize all the members you've tried to put in so that we can get the ultimate goals that we so require?
And I want to put a question to just the two of you to give me a quick response, maybe a word or two. What would be the one interest that brings us together? Captain Babu.
The biggest is the market.
And Honorable Mbide?
The human resource.
Okay.
In addition to the market.
I think common trade is, in one word,
yes.
Common trade is fundamental in order to provide African solutions to the African problems.
But still there is protectionism. Kenya will refuse your dairy, your maize to come in because they have a surplus.
No, what we...
to that if you're talking about markets?
That one was addressed. I think when you look at the SQMT, the Standardization, Quality Assurance, Methodology, and the Testing Act, each country is supposed to emerge with a product list.
Okay.
And these lists are supposed to be agreed upon. We don't need to have a convoluted procedure where, of course, we are talking about opportunity cost. We don't need each country to produce the same thing to the extent that we are not actually the labor choice now for each other.
Thank you.
However, what is coming on the table now is also political. If you look at Zambia, Botswana, and Zimbabwe, they want to form a federation.
Okay.
Yes, as we talk right now. And South Africa. If you look at West Africa, the other three people who everybody has been laughing about are forming a federation. And people are joining them, by the way.
The Sahel.
Yeah. Yes. Guinea and everybody wants to join. So there's a political requirement of being together. You are stronger.
Doesn't it strike you that the African continent,
yes,
that has got even an African continental free trade area, big companies, but on the scale of the first 100 global companies, there is no African company.
Okay.
That is something that should strike us to the extent then that the federation that Honorable Babu is talking about should quickly take shape. Mergers and acquisitions in terms of you, the investors, Captain Mukula, should be thought about to the extent that we get listed. At least one company should feature. But you have some Dangotes, some what.
Actually, they are all... My brother here, he's talking about the politicians. Those are the ones who don't understand what we're talking about.
Okay. A quick one, Honorable, you had something to comment, and I come to the Honorable Dr.
You know, when I look at the African continent, it's very important for you to note, look at these figures. The African continent, all put together, let's start with East Africa, power generated is between 14,000 and 15,000 megawatts.
Mm-hmm.
The whole of East Africa, 8 countries. The whole of Africa is a total power generation of nearly 184 megawatts. The whole of Africa. In terms of demographics, we have 1.5 billion people. China has got 1.5 billion.
No, so we're at 1.4. Don't make us look too big.
Look at near that. That's what I'm looking at. 1.4, 1.5,
yes.
Nearly the same. And China the same. But when you look at the numbers, in terms of growth, either the GDP, GNP, and all those put together, China combined in terms of electricity, in terms of their terabytes generated, is much bigger than the whole of United States, Western Europe put together, and Africa combined, China.
Okay.
No wonder in terms of economic growth and those that have come out into the middle class and up, China was able to convert that in a very short time. That is why it is important for you to look at East African political economic federation.
Yes.
Why? DRC Congo is 92 times the size of Rwanda.
Yes, I did.
DRC Congo is the size of, is 11 times the size of Uganda. It has got all the 14 major minerals. Its projected mineral wealth is much bigger than the United States and Western Europe put together. What does that mean? Look at electricity. DRC Congo from Inga 1 to Inga 12 can generate 50% of Africa's hydroelectric needs.
Correct.
Combine that now and relate that to the East African community and see how we can be able to, very quickly, these cost pushers which are keeping Africa back, if we combine these resources, see where Africa would be.
And not only that, he has not told you that China is the biggest in green energy, using solar. In fact, in some places, solar electricity is being discouraged. Solar is on.
Thank you. Honorable Dr. Pei, especially the amazing work you did in Amolata with rice. Let's come to the conversation of agro-industrialization. This conversation, I think, is now getting to become a broken record. The NRM has talked about it, commercialization, we're still using the whole, there was some time there was a drip bottle to be able to industrialize. The biggest constituency of people, of human capital is in agriculture. We put the least amount of money there. It gives us 24% to the GDP. Are we really serious about agro-industrialization as a government?
Timothy, I see you really coming from a very pessimistic kind of point of view when you put that. But I also appreciate that view, that yes, as a country, we are making progress, but we are not doing it maybe as fast as we would have done, assuming all the other factors constant. But I have to say that one of the key growth sectors or drivers of the economy is actually agro-industrialization. And in the NDP 4, as my colleagues were talking about, there are these 4 thematic areas where there's agriculture, agro-industrialization, there's technology, there's manufacturing, and there's services, what they're calling the ATMs. And it is one of the key policy priorities that government is now undertaking and making sure that substantive investment is actually made. Now, agro-industrialization as a sector is indeed one of the key drivers. It employs the majority of our people, as you rightly say. It contributes really that much to the GDP. And as you rightly said, yes, as in terms of investment, I'm an economist and I sit in the budget committee for the last 5 years. That if you look at that budget allocation in terms of how much money is given to agriculture as agriculture, then you'll miss the point. Because the money we're investing in the infrastructure contributes to agriculture. The money you're putting in security, if our country is not secure, there is no way you're going to go to that farm, whether with a hoe or with a tractor, to actually go and farm.
Honorable Pei, let's get this interjection.
You know, Honorable, you know, President Museveni is one of the best debaters in Africa, and I have heard him espousing the same argument one time. It is not true that the budget allocated to defense should be construed as if it is a budget allocated to agriculture, merely because agriculture takes place during times of peace. No. Here we are talking about modernization. How can your cow be sold as tinned beef from the farm? That is modernization. How can we do value addition on coffee? That instead of selling berries, we take coffee in the form of cappuccino itself. How can Finland, that does not produce coffee, obtain When you look at their budgetary estimates, their earnings from coffee are bigger than what we earn here in Uganda. How should Brazil reach out to the coffee import market of UAE without Uganda's coffee? We are talking about agriculture in terms of allocation for purposes of value addition, for modernization purposes.
Thank you very much. But,
yes.
But before you go, Madam, what did President Museveni say the main aim are of being in Chankwanzi? What was the first point?
The points he talked about historical mission. Huh? The historical mission, and he mentioned prosperity, strategic security. He went on to...
So strategic security is required. Is for farms. If this man has got cows and they steal them every night without security...
I agree with you, but that is a general phenomenon.
No,
because that one cannot specifically be calculated as given to agriculture.
Please allow Dr. Ape to submit her points.
Yes. Everything that you have talked about
that is just a good debate.
Actually catered for in the budgets. We have money in the banks, in UDP, in private sector, actually about, I think, 1.8 trillion. In private sector, it is meant for agro-industrialization. It is meant to buy the value addition equipment you're talking about.
But before you industrialize,
it is meant to go and
let me just give you this,
that farmer.
Let me just give you this little information. Then you continue. Then you continue. The little funding that was given for purposes of wealth creation, the manner in which it elevated the agriculture sector, that has in fact maintained our strength of a shilling to $1 for almost the last 4 or 5 years. Under Operation Wealth Creation, it is because of that little funding. What it actually implies is that if agriculture as a sector would be equally extra funded, Uganda would become a superpower.
But let me tell you,
yes.
you know,
Agreed.
no,
yes.
That is a fact.
Yeah, because
but do
Uganda,
you also know
Uganda
that the 3.8 trillion we are talking about in PDM is actually an investment in agriculture?
No, tell him. You're talking about employment.
Thank you. It is an investment in agriculture.
Yes.
All the videos you are seeing on PDM is for pigs, it's for sheep, it's for coffee, it's for everything. Now, if you are to address the agro-industrialization, agro-industrialization is a broad sector. It's a whole value chain.
Yes.
It is not about the farm only.
It is true.
You've got to have the inputs, you've got to have the processing, you've got to have the post-harvest, you've got the market, you've got the technology and everything. So it is very
it's a wide
unfortunate.
ecosystem.
Yes, it's a whole ecosystem, a whole value chain. It's very unfortunate that when we talk about agriculture, we are only looking at the land, the coffee in the farm, and we are forgetting about the whole ecosystem. As a government, actually in that budget, if we try to analyze it and bring all the money that is meant to be the way you want it, it would be actually more than 60%. Because all the money that is being invested in MEASURABLE, in UDB, now we have money for large-scale farmers in, I think, Pearl Bank or something. So I think we need to appreciate that agriculture, commercialization of agriculture is one of the key priority sectors that government is focusing on. That is why there's the ATMS. A is agriculture.
Yes.
Ethiopia has spent money in commercial agriculture, in flowers and vegetables. The Ethiopian Airlines had to buy aeroplanes to take that stuff to Europe. They now have one of the biggest cargo airlines in Africa.
Okay.
And mainly for their agriculture.
Yeah.
And that all comes from 48% of East Africa's arable land is in Uganda. Yeah. Our comparative advantage is in agriculture. Yeah. That's why we have grown our dairy industry to now 5.3 billion liters of milk. What we now need to do is go into value addition and market. Look at Kinshasa, a population of nearly 20 to 22 million people. Yeah. The whole of Kinshasa imports powdered milk from Australia, from Brazil, from Northern Europe, and they all bring it and consume. When the next door country can feed the whole of DRC Congo, that is the comparative advantage we are talking about.
Thank you. Dr. Pe.
Yes, so Thank you very much for all the inputs in that particular sector. And agriculture is one of those sectors that concerns everyone, and I really appreciate that. So basically, what we need to be talking about is how coordinated this sector is. Because at the moment, you have the farmers, you have the capital there, you have the input somewhere. Yesterday I was reading about how some agrochemicals are banned and all that kind of stuff. So I think we need to invest more on how we are going to ensure that these value chains are actually addressed as an ecosystem, but not in isolation. So coordination is very critical, but also the efficiency, the implementation that we are talking about. We need to definitely strengthen our Ministry of Agriculture. Remember, we've just done, during this parliament, we did the rationalization. So all the agriculture sectors that were really spread all over, it's now all together under the Ministry of Agriculture. What we need to invest more as well as a country is the extension services. Much as we are talking about the market and we are talking about the investment and we are talking about that, one of the key things actually for agriculture to thrive are the four factors of production, the capital. And at the moment, all these funds that you were talking about are meant to reduce the cost of capital so that our people are able to access affordable capital to invest in agriculture, but also for government to cushion some of the risk factors that really denies banks or financial institutions to invest in agriculture. So extension services is still really a critical area. And then the issue of the quality assurance as well. I think there are elements of regulation that needs to be strengthened a bit. And all this that we're talking about are actually already embedded in the National Development Plan 4, with very clear strategies of how we would want to commercialize our agriculture and how we want to industrialize that sector and how we would want to pull the rest of the communities, the people that you rightly said are involved in agriculture. But also above that, agriculture will then enhance what we see as an inclusive growth. Because these figures we are talking about, who are these who are really in the growth, pathway? Are we talking about everybody in my village? And that is where those investments at the rural level is playing a critical role in ensuring that as we talk about growth, as we talk about regional integration and all that, are we actually talking about everyone? Is it really inclusive enough? And that is where agriculture really plays a critical role. Yes, the budget we have for agriculture may not be sufficient enough. It's an area that I hope that this new term will be able maybe to improve on. But at the moment, what you see happening with all these investments around capital is to ensure that agriculture is, the environment is actually enabled for it to thrive.
If I get to Joseph here, and I'm glad you mentioned it, the president has been emphatic about, about 200 to 400 billion worth dollars of coffee in the whole world there, and talks about Germany, how it earns about 25 billion from just, and they don't grow it, but they just process. Yeah. What levers or what three areas do we need to focus on in agriculture that can be able to transform it? Because shouldn't we be putting money, because there are about 68% of our people that are in farming, look at that and specifically put money there, look at the value addition, and then finally the markets. What areas should we focus on, especially to transform this? Because you have said it, it's vast, it has too many facets moving. What three areas should we focus on to be able to make it move?
Thank you. I think one of the critical areas, and the president has come out really boldly on this, that as a country, we are not going to export our goods, our product, agricultural products raw. We have to process and add value. And so one of the critical investment, which is already in plan, which is already working, is to ensure that we invest in value addition. So that whatever, whether it's coffee, whether it is milk, whether it's banana, it should be taken when it is processed.
Okay.
The second aspect that needs to really, that is happening, which I've already talked about, is investing in our financial institutions and affordable capital. For example, if you come to a Molatar, we have a whole lake there, but what we know is the traditional fishing. My farmer in a Molatar does not have the capital to invest in, for example, cage fishing or fish ponds, because they do not have that capital. Now, government is investing in those areas to ensure that farmers are empowered to invest in the sector where they may not be capable. In northern Uganda, and actually the whole country, there is a fund at the moment which is funding farmers who have 50 acres and above. The money is there. It is interest-free loan for you to access that money, interest-free to go and invest. So the aspect of capital is also very critical. The third aspect is on the infrastructure. Much as my brother was saying that we need to put money on the farm, but if we do not invest in the infrastructure, in the road, the railway we're talking about, our seniors just talked about how Ethiopia had to invest in a cargo plane. We will not be able to move these goods from the farmer up to the market. So infrastructure is very key, and I'm sure that in terms of roads, in terms of electricity, so that the processing we are talking about, the market we are talking about, the processed product that we are talking about is able to, we are able to actually do what we have already put in plan. And all these are really in plan, and they've already started working on it.
Thank you very much. Joseph, finally, one of the things that is at this retreat is discussing the higher middle income status of the country, pursuing that, and they're saying we're at a lower income status. When you move around, I know you move around quite a bit, is this reflective on ground for an ordinary Ugandan? Because someone gave an example and said, if I have one cow and it gives birth, and the person who has 100 and he has 10 that give birth, is this disparity really an issue that NRM should focus on?
The first time I took a group of relatives to visit the center of the Republic of Uganda, which is a Molatar.
That's a good one.
We traveled via Nakasongola and across the river and from Namasale on our way towards the Molatar town center. And I remember, not cheekily, but very deliberately asking the citizens of that place, as we drove past, that look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 households. And it's absolutely nothing to reflect on Agnes. She had just become a member of parliament, I think, just the year before. And you could see households. You do not need to study economics. You don't need to know anything to do with average quality education. Beyond that, I then went in for a funeral in Kumi, and sort of about the same. But the point then was, in between these families that we are passing as we drive, count 5 households. If we stopped there, what are the likelihoods that you'd get 1,000 shilling out of that family? Of those 5, how many by the end of the month do you expect would have 50,000 shillings? And that's why part of the early conversation was very important about the question of multidimensional poverty index, for which my poor Bukedi was the last time, although I'm told we have now done slightly better, quite shockingly. And at the time when I managed to have traveled to Zombo in West Nile. And I wondered, coming from Nagongera and going through Zombo without prejudice, I said, but how did Zombo manage to miss this? You know, we do not have time. But every time I come onto these programs, I am delighted when I'm joined by, I'll pick 2 specific, somebody like Agnes and somebody like Mike, very deliberately, if I let the other 2. Fantastically clever people in this country, and they give me massively hope. One of the major media household networks have baptized me the national optimist, the most optimistic Ugandan. So I get hope. But the problem then is, why are we here, considering where we've come all along, that we actually should and must be doing better? Agnes, you know, as you talk, the local police station in Nagongera was a factory in 1971. It was a seed factory. And as you talk, I have had conversations in northern Uganda that includes past of few places, that includes a possibility of but why did we kill the cooperative movement? Why don't we just be open and honest enough that we got this wrong in 1986, possibly got this wrong in the 90s? What used to be done as nation states, you look at what were previous governments, you don't have to associate and agree with them. Why don't we do exactly this? We took the railway programs. And for me, as I said, Timothy, it hurts. Because my government found the railway at Soroti. But within about 6 years, we managed to extend it from Soroti to Lira, to Gulu, to Pakwach, including the bridge. We do not have an existing railway networks. I'm a social democrat, as you know, so effectively I'm a socialist. So I'm a believer in big government. I even argue, having Mike here, Mike, as you know, there is no recent government anywhere in the world that has developed without an integrated rail network. Here we are talking both qualitative, the figures that very impressive both of you guys give, but actually qualitative economics is about the nitty-gritties that you're talking about. And so quite clearly, it is bad news. I will tell you again, I go back to Nagongera and immediately I cross Kibimba. Kibimba Rice Scheme was the first government deliberate project with the Chinese government. And I know one or two people who were basically trained for that. And then you go across Kibimba. I think earlier some people were laughing, maybe thought maybe I was trying to begin to push the UPC narrative, which absolutely I have no apologies about. But I was also talking about Busitema National Agricultural College, because the government at the time deliberately said we are a national agricultural, we are an agricultural economy. So they deliberately built a national agricultural college. What you don't know, and I know you possibly do not, is that every district had a farm institute at the time, at least. Maybe these are the things that you need to revisit, review, as you continue to advise, and as our fantastic young friends from Chankwanzi get liberated and come to do real business, that they're able to pick these things, to translate them into real action. But Mike, I must just give you a minor correction, you know, my close friends, you know, about Bushenyi. It used to be only one day, once a week. I mean, once in a year, and it was a National Heroes Day because of what he landed at Bushenyi on his return from Tanzania. And that National Heroes Day was a Liberation Day. But you know what? I have an opinion piece which I'm not going to publish for a different reason, which was supposed to be talk about the forgotten liberation, April the 11th, 1979, lest we forget. So these days we celebrate some other days, but that was the day. But actually it was very, very well organized and it was purposely bringing people together. I actually have a view that in the likely event that a post-NRA government is UPC and I'm in charge, I would possibly dissolve Chankwanzi as it is. But perhaps maybe I would build a university on it. Why? Because we used to have an Institute of Public Administration, Agnes. Did you know that? The current Uganda Management Institute. That's where civil servants went and got trained. And we had excellent men and women. You guys talked about the continental thing, which is basically my pleasure. You know, I'm a globalist. I'm even disappointed we not even had the opportunity to discuss the excess aggression of America and Israel on the unacceptable kind of war.
It's not talked about in Chankwanzi.
No, I'm just with but we're talking, and we may help the guys in Chankwanzi. Some of them may not necessarily substantially contextualize that, considering the fact that we talk about national integrity going forward. But that as it may, education that has been mentioned, Mike, the educational programs that we had, and I'm talking about the future, was a universal primary and secondary education within the first 10 years of independence. We had this to have been in by 1991. The current UPEUSE really should be free, compulsory, fully free, universal and compulsory, meaning that education should be free and compulsory, Meaning the issues that Dr. Agnes is raising, I think it was Mike, these things of girl children not being able to go to school, things like that. Really, why can't we afford to cater for these children, consider the fact that actually we have possibly 1%, top 1% of the guys in Uganda do extremely well. I know of the top 5% of Ugandans who do extremely well. Some of them are possibly doing in a rather slightly much more dodgy way. We should be able to get better. The contextual topic today is about how these guys can make sure that we're able to enable average Ugandans. I really, really hope that therefore, that when they're looking at this, when they come back from Chankwanzi, that they're able to refocus. Agnes, you've been very diplomatic.
Lastly,
you know very well that agriculture is underfunded. You know agriculture is underfunded. We need to really put our budget on the top. We review the security budget. We review the budget for the presidency. We review the budget for parliament. And this parliamentarians openly simply said that no, agriculture, actually the global figure accepted is 15%. For me, as UBC possible, will go beyond, consider the fact that it's such an important thing. But yes, infrastructure now takes quite a huge amount of money, understandably, because these guys didn't invest in it. But that infrastructure, the whole of Toro district, for the last 40 years, not a single new road has been. And I really hope that Nagongara Road on this occasion is included.
Thank you. Let me read some feedback so that we can be able to call it an evening. Thank Honorable Babu for sealing it well. The monster called corruption affects the entire country. Otherwise, we do not have an economy in Uganda, since no one is safe, whether rich or poor. This is Mike in Soroti. Okello sends in a message and says, good evening, Timothy, thank you for the show. Tell Honorable Mukula that poverty levels in Teso is so appalling that many households cannot afford 100 shillings a day. He is also just using a lot of English, and bravo to Captain Babu for being on spot. When we have many MPs winning elections through corruption, what else do we expect? Let corruption just be hanged and the property be confiscated by government. This is Okello Herbert. Okay, thank you, Okello. Credit facilities. Good evening, Timothy. Please, I am here to appreciate the citizen of Captain Babu. His clear and open discussion. However, the likes of okay, I'll leave that. You cannot call him a helpless person. Guidance only for the things that are there. Which kind of leader do we have? Thank God he failed. Okay, I pray that His Excellency. This is a lot of. Why can't East Africa be integrated? Because of the political affairs. You can only look at the subsets. Remember, if politics is integrated, we shall realize integration. Okay, interesting. Lastly but not least, Kasasa, this is Iga on Mitiana Road. He says, I just need to know who has the mandate to fight corruption in this country. Corruption for over 40 years? This is too much.
Mr. Iga himself. It starts with Mr. Iga and goes up.
Okay. On my side, I do not support the style of government that giving cash to people when the economy is not good, because the farm and the agriculture inputs are very expensive. It needs to instead have government subsidize agricultural input, remove taxes on agricultural processes, market dues, and similar obstacles to create markets for agriculture. That will keep a farmer better. This is Charles in Fort Portal. Okay, numerous messages that have come through, and many people thinking.
Yeah, there's one thing you didn't talk about.
Both procedures can apply.
IGG told us 11 trillion every year. Baganda used the word. Is it for Muka?
Okay. But also the IGG is becoming a media personality. You see also the role of the IGG should have been to deliver the same for drive.
I want to thank the gentlemen for coming through. I want to thank you, Dr. Pe, for coming through, and also especially you who has watched us and sent us a message to this conversation. I want to thank the production team for making today possible. I'll end with this quote by the late Nelson Mandela. I never lose, I either learn or I win. Good morning.
UBC, inspiring Uganda. In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archive stories shaped our past and illuminated